Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. Today is 12th July 2023. My name is TSV Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. This is my spiritual vlog on YouTube. Haribol TRSV Nectar NECTAR Nectar. In this particular vlog, in all my previous videos, we have been discussing about the knowledge and information that we have gleaned through the study of spiritual books, scriptures, contemplation on the material universe, and meditation on the spiritual universe. This particular video in this vlog is no exception to that rule. In fact, it is a mere continuation of what we have been doing in all my previous videos. Kindly subscribe to this vlog and press the bell icon so that I may keep reminding you of all my previous videos and future videos. So let us continue with the topic for today. In my past video, we began our discussion about the first element in the material world that is used to make up or constitute the three subtle bodies or layers that envelop the spirit soul when it comes in touch with the material world. We have already talked about the four other elements in this process, and these four elements that make up for the gross body of the living entity which a spirit soul becomes when it is enveloped by these material bodies are air, fire, water, and earth. To make myself more clear, I'd like to go in detail when I'm discussing the topic about ether. Actually, when the spirit soul comes in touch with the material world, this material world envelops that spirit soul in four layers of material bodies. Of these four layers, three are subtle and the fourth is gross. These three subtle bodies are called causal body of intelligence, astral body of feelings and emotions, and etheric body of five senses. These three layers are made up of an element called ether, which we are going to talk about in detail in this video. Actually, there are five elements that make up for the complete body of a spirit soul. They are ether, which make up the three subtle bodies: air, fire, water, and earth. Air, fire, water, and earth are the four elements that join together to make the gross body, of which we have already discussed in detail in my past videos. Today we are here to talk about the first element, that is ether. Ether makes up for the three subtle bodies of a spirit soul. When this spirit soul is thus enveloped in a material body consisting of four layers, three being subtle and fourth being gross, this spirit soul transforms into a living entity. We all are living entities. There are thousands and thousands of species of living entities in this world. They include cells, algae, amoebas, weeds, grass, tree, worms, insects, reptiles, beasts, amphibians, and other such species, and ultimately the human species. This human species is also as material as the other species of living entities. There are more than 4 lakh species of human beings alone. We belong to one of such forms of human beings. Now we will talk about ether, the substance that makes up for our subtle bodies. There are three layers, as I already mentioned. These three layers of subtle body made up of ether are: first, the one layer that is closest to the soul of a living entity is causal intelligence. It is all spiritual logic. When I talk about logic, there are many which consider material logic as logic. Actually, it is not. It is based on spirituality and is completely pure and unemotional or without any sensual tendencies. It is a logic which takes the living entity more towards the spirit soul that he or she originally is. Second is the body of astral mind of feelings and emotions. This is the second layer in the subtle body of a human or any other living entity. Third is the body of etheric senses, being sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. This is the third layer which is farthest from the spirit soul but closest to the gross body of that particular living entity. Now, we should remember this before we proceed further into the discussion on ether. First, we will talk about this etheric body of senses. There are broadly five senses. They are, as I had mentioned before, sight, smell, hearing, taste, and touch. These five are having a corresponding sense organ in the gross body. They are two eyes for sight, two nostrils for smell, two ears for hearing, one tongue for taste, and the complete skin plus genitals for touch. Thus, these sense organs directly correspond to the etheric senses. Now I will talk about what exactly happens in the life of a living entity. Vibrations are caused in multicolored phases by these three subtle bodies. That is, etheric senses have their own vibrations, astral mind has its own vibrations, and causal intelligence has its own vibrations. These vibrations caused by these three subtle bodies of a living entity are transmitted by them to the gross body of this living entity. This transmission is through a mass of tissues which is known as brain in the gross body of that particular living entity. In other words, the brain is the conduit between the total gross body of the living entity and the vibrations from the subtle bodies of that living entity. Vibrations transmitted to the brain of a living entity are churned, chewed upon, masticated, and processed by the brain before the ultimate result is transmitted further into the gross body of that living entity. The gross body, knowingly or unknowingly, reacts according to these transmissions that have been processed and further transmitted by the brain of the same gross body. According to our destiny or our own creator, the brain has been given the responsibility to receive transmission from the three subtle bodies and monitor the rest of the gross body by transmitting them further into the gross body. This is how the living entity functions In other words, on one side, there are three subtle bodies that emit vibrations to the brain of the gross body. This brain processes these vibrations and the result is further transmitted to the rest of the gross body by that brain. Now we understand how we function. Though I have taken so much time to explain it, actually it is a continuous process that begins with our birth in a particular lifetime and death in a particular lifetime. The cycle of endless births and deaths happens to every living entity. One cannot say that once he or she has lived a lifetime and passed on, he or she will not take another birth. It all depends on the sanchit karma of that particular living entity. This sanchit karma is a complete storage of unworked karma of that particular living entity. Our ultimate aim is to get self realized and then get liberated from these repeated births and deaths by working out the complete Sanchit karma and then ultimately get delivered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This we must remember before proceeding further. Now, coming back to this element called ether, which makes up these three layers of subtle body. This ether varies in quality when it makes up these subtle bodies. The ether which makes up the causal body of intelligence, which is closest to the soul, is the most subtle of all ether in the life of a living entity. Qualitatively, ether may be similar in all subtle bodies, but yet there is a difference in the category of material used to make up a subtle body. The causal body is the subtlest of the three subtle bodies. It is more equal than the other two. There is a medium quality of this ether which is used to make up the astral body of mind, feelings, emotions, etc. It is very subtle, but yet it is not as subtle as the causal body of intelligence. The third and the final subtle body, called etheric senses, is the grossest of this ether material used to make up a subtle body of a living entity. Though qualitatively, basically, all subtle bodies are similar, but the refinement in the ether of all the three subtle bodies differs. The body of etheric senses is the most coarse. The astral body of mind, feelings, and emotions is lesser in coarseness, and the causal body of intelligence is the most subtle. Now we will talk about living entities. Please listen to this very carefully before jumping into any conclusion. Of the 100% living entities that go around in this material world, 75% are born with these etheric senses, live in these etheric senses, and die after a lifetime thinking about only these etheric senses. In other words, vibrations caused by the subtle body of etheric senses are the ones that the brain in the gross body processes and transmits most in the gross body of any living entity. Like the etheric senses of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch are the most important in the life of 75% of living entities. Of the other 25, 20% have a choice. They can either listen to these etheric senses or to the astral body of mind, feelings, and emotions. Such living entities have more emotions and feelings than the one which listens only to the etheric senses. That is precisely the reason why etheric senses are considered to be logical on the material term in this material world. A person who does not listen to his or her emotions and listens only to these etheric senses thinks conveniently that he or she is more logical than the one who listens to his or her feelings and emotions. It is not a fact. So never ever be confused with those gross people who say they are acting logically. Actually, they are acting only according to their senses and sensuality. So, if these people are devoid of feelings and emotions, please do not give them any importance. They are basically and officially inferior to those who listen to their feelings and emotions. Now we have discussed about 75% of etheric senses people and 20% of those who have both etheric senses and astral mind. Now remains the top 5%. These 5% listen more to their causal intelligence than to the astral mind of feelings and emotions and the etheric senses and their vibrations. These 5% are closest to the spirit soul which has been enveloped by the material body. In other words, these people are the actual logical people who have a lot of intelligence, capacity, capability, and also empathy and sympathy because of their own astral mind, but who do not sway under the pressure of feelings, emotions, and senses. Such 5% try not to listen to the etheric senses at all, but a residue of the etheric senses may remain in their psyche. However, they give more preference to the astral mind of feelings and emotions, but ultimately, because of their spiritual logic from the causal intelligence, consider vibrations from their causal body of intelligence as supreme and prime. In such people, the brain tissue of such people as living entities processes more vibrations of causal intelligence than that of astral mind of feelings and emotions and the etheric sensual nature vibrations emanating out of the etheric body. These are people who become monks, saints, rishis, maharishis, scientists, discoverers, very intelligent people, very erudite people, and very capable people both on the material as well as spiritual side. Their causal mind and causal body of intelligence and the vibrations emanating out of such a body are more useful in the lifetime. You may be wondering why people differ so much in a society. This is precisely the reason why. 75% listen only to the vibrations from the etheric body of senses, namely sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. These are more material in their outlook towards life and their executing their own karma based on that. Such people make up for all the sensual activities that happen all around in this material world. However, the 20% who listen to the astral mind of intelligence and feelings along with these etheric senses are people who are extremely talented in performing arts or any other art, and they make up for very good painters, musicians, singers, poets, lyricists, etc. People who kindle the heart within the others in the society of the material world. These people have a, an angle or a talent to kindle the emotions and feelings of the people in the society. The third, causal intelligence people do not depend on these creative talents or on etheric senses as much as they consider the cold spiritual logic as the ultimate in their lives. That is precisely the reason why they make up for their intellectual and cerebral faculties. Before jumping into any conclusion, let me remind you that this is a gradual process that is applicable to every living entity, and it depends according to his or her natural evolvement into spiritualism and otherwise. Philosophy is blind speculation. Fanaticism is totally fanatic and radical. But spiritualism is a combination of philosophy and religion. This is a saying in the spiritual and material world in a society. I will make this more clear to the viewer. Philosophy without a religion is blind speculation. Religion without philosophy is fanaticism and radical thinking, whereas the correct blend of religion and philosophy makes a person spiritual. Spirituality is the ultimate aim that we all should concentrate on in our own lifetime. A person who is spiritually inclined becomes more and more cerebral and intellectual and ultimately goes towards the supreme personality of Godhead. There have been instances of very qualified, intelligent people who were materially quite successful but who began resorting to total spiritualism just because of their own cerebral faculties. Swami Vivekananda was one such person. He had a completely neat blend of philosophy and religion in him. Yoga and meditation aim at such qualities in a living entity. The yoga is actually dormant in every living entity and it has to be kindled to make that person more and more evolved. Yoga begins with physical exercises to make the person ready for future achievements on the cerebral side through contemplation and meditation. Kindly remember that the ultimate aim of every living entity is self realization of the fact that he or she is actually the spirit soul. Then comes liberation from these endless births and deaths, where he or she tries to cast off these four layers of material body once for all. And once this person comes to his or her original position as a spirit soul, this person must aim at getting delivered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the ultimate bull's eye or aim that every living entity should focus on. Kindly let me know what you think of my talk on this particular matter in this video. Please give me your own expert opinions, thoughts, and ideas so that I may blend everything together for the sake of this society. Before concluding, let me remind you that I am also a published author with Amazon Kindle and paperback. I write on spiritualism, fiction, and assorted subjects. Spiritualism happens to be my favorite subject. Till we meet in my next video, it is good morning from TSV Raghavan.